accelerate. It's so hard from here to see where he did.
I'm laughing at you because your first comment is really like a true driver. I would have said the same thing if I was driving, but we know the instructions from the president of the Indianapolis Racing League.
All right, so we'll try this all again as you get a shot of this huge crowd, about 300,000 strong. And boy, just getting in today was a trick. But here we go one more time as the field forms up. They come around through turn 4, and Elio's on the gas again. We'll find out if this one sticks as they come down towards the starter stand. Green flag in hand, but we haven't seen it yet. Yes, now we're green in Indianapolis. Oh, we've got a crash in the short chute. 2 cars into the wall, and it looks like one of them might be Marco Andretti. Taking a look right now, trying to see who that is.
Boy, we talked about this. You have to get through the first turn and the first lap because you have to finish here if you have a shot at winning. The emotions inside those drivers' cockpits right now are just crazy.
It's the 5 car of Mario Moraes. He has been sliding under the radar, been performing extremely well. Look at the disconsolate expression in the cockpit. He just can't believe that his race is over before lap 1.
And he was one of the favorites going in. We were all talking about dark horses, and he was definitely somebody we were all counting on. What happened?
With what I saw, it looked like he was on the outside, and then another car got into him, and there just wasn't enough room between the wall and him. Watch about a quarter distance back, and you can just start to see the car on the inside moves up just a little bit too much. The spotter should have been telling him there's a car on your high side. And that car that moved up was actually Mario Moraes, so he should have known that the other car, which I believe might have been Marco Andretti, was there.
Yes, it was Marco, and you can see that he also had contact with the wall.
So put that directly on Mario Moraes. Now watch up front. Marco's doing a great job on the high side. They're on the gas from the short chute. His spotter should have told him that Marco was coming up on the high side. You just can't be moving around like that.
Absolutely, definitely not Marco's fault.
And young Mario Moraes, at the age of 20, one of the young guns that we talked about at the beginning of the broadcast, having a chance to break the record for the youngest winner. His day is over before it really gets started here on lap number 1.
And it really was uncalled for because there was a lot of room lower down in the track. They had all the room they wanted. They were not up to speed. You didn't have to be up that high. There's just either the spotter did not give him the right information, or he was too busy looking at ahead and trying to figure out what to do in the race.
And he's standing there wanting to have some words with Marco. He's probably going to try and shake his fist when he goes by. Marco's obviously gone into the pit lane. Jackaroo?
Yeah, Paul Tracy is having his race today called by his good friend and the man that convinced him to come back to Indy, Jimmy Vasser, on the left-hand side of your screen. He and Tracy sat down and talked this race through yesterday afternoon. They determined that what they were going to do is kind of like they did in the Kentucky Derby, where the Calvin Burrell held the horse back until the final moments. Vasser and PT are, and I quote, cruising right now. Jimmy just told me we're not going to show what we've got until lap 150. Interesting, huh, guys?
Yes, it is, Jack. Very interesting, and it'll be interesting to see if that is able to be played out, because as you mentioned earlier, you make this plan, and 9 times out of 10, it changes fast.
But he got into his rhythm really quickly, so I think Paul has a...
Oh, and we've got another crash here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and that is the 21...
Ryan Hunter-Reay is actually all the way into the pit lane right now. So that came off of turn 4, and whatever problem he had, he came down into pit lane.
Slowed up right in front of me in 4.
Now this is turn 4 that we're looking on. They both look just a little bit high, and I'm not sure that there's any problem there, with the exception, Eddie, that he's just off of line and just a little bit high getting through the turn, and he got up into that gray area, and it just got out from underneath him.
To me, it looks like he's just too high. Like you said, I didn't really see Floyd slow down. Maybe it happened early on and we didn't see it, but high last year, the same thing happened. High in 4 is a bad place to be, and that's probably I think one of the worst areas to have an accident.
Let's go on the onboard.
I listened to his throttle at the same time.
Inside. Be ahead. It's the dust.
He was already off the throttle by the time we jumped on board with that. he knew that he was losing it already, and that's just an awful feeling. Now, this is setting up the first round of pit stops, but they will not open the pits until they can remove the car out of the entrance of pit lane, so this might just take a few laps.
Yeah, he just got chopped his right, and now he finally gets clear of the slower traffic and tries to reel in Ryan Briscoe, but Briscoe has opened up now a 0.4 of a second lead.
But he's got 4 cars ahead of him, and they're all bunched up, which is the worst sort of traffic you can have. So he's got to check up, and Franchitti's going to get a run on him coming out, so Franchitti could repay. No, he's too far back.
That's a great point. Here we're going to find out which car is working better in traffic. Now, the teams can certainly start off with more aerodynamic downforce on the cars at the beginning of the race, and during pit stops, they can remove some front wing and rear wing as Briscoe starts to work through traffic. Another crash.
And it sounds like it is turn number 4 as we have our 3rd caution of the day, and a car into the wall, and it is Graham Rahal.
The same turn last year that he crashed, which took him out of the event.
That's sad.
Lap 36 last year, lap 56 this year. And Graham will not be happy.
Nor with his team, for that matter.
Newman Haas Lanigan Racing. They have brought some of the most brilliant drivers to this speedway. Mario Andretti, Nigel Mansell. The team has never won the Indianapolis 500. Right now, it's going to be another year.
And it's a long year when you have to wait to get back there.
Looks like a pretty good hit. Probably corner and underwing, so.
I'd say it's a pretty good hit.
Yeah.
It's not going far. I mean, the first thing they want
And
to
look, it's high again off of 4. That was a big one.
That is hard.
That started probably 400 yards before we saw it coming onto the screen.
And there he hits the safer barrier, and you can see he just made the safer barrier where the 2 marks are on the wall.
Look at the angle.
Just right now, bang, into the safer barrier, and then the concrete wall starts to go down the straightaway. That steel and foam energy reduction system that's been employed here over the past couple of years has really helped a lot of drivers.
Graham is out of the car, appears to be okay. Let's take you back to last year, and it will look like deja vu all over again, just a different color.
Just got behind somebody that was coming into the pit lane, did not time that right, gets a little bit of air off the front wing, gets into that gray area, Eddie, and loses the steering. The steering wheel goes light and bang into the wall. And let's watch up ahead and see what happens here. Turn 4, same sort of scenario. Gets a little bit of dirty air on the car. He's trying to gas it, and you know something? That's when you need to have a little bit more patience, and experience will pay off.
That was almost a photocopy of what happened last year. He was getting around a car that was in front of him. I don't think it was so much a question of air. You just have to give up a spot every now and again. He had Kanaan breathing down his back. He was in a rush, and he just went in the wrong place. There is no grip on the outside of 4, period. So if you keep running up there, sooner or later, it's going to eat your lunch. And it's a pity because he was really having a good race.
Yes, he was. And we mentioned some of those names that have driven for Newman Haas Lanigan here at the Speedway. We mentioned Mario, of course, Nigel Mansell, Michael Andretti, Paul Tracy, Bruno Junqueira, and they have yet to win here at the 500. Well, now coming down the front straightaway, Franchitti apparently having a bit of problem trying to get around. Now he moves to the inside and darts around as EJ does what you said. He breathes the throttle just a little bit, Scott.
Should have, as Eddie mentioned, maybe breathe it just a little sooner down the straight. And experience will tell you to do that so you're not in that confrontation in the turn. And now you see on board with Tony Kanaan, he's sort of fighting the steering wheel because the car in front, EJ Vizo, just sliced down in front of him. And we're on board with EJ now, and watch the draft happen. And Tony Kanaan gets through in another accident.
Yellow.
And it looks like it is Davey Hamilton in the 44, and it is, as he has tagged the wall. And we now have our 4th caution here at this year's Indianapolis 500.
Dead loose.
You heard him say bad loose, guys. Bad loose.
And that is probably the worst thing you want a race car driver to say, is loose around this place.
Well, Davey, a crowd favorite here, his 9th start. Remember that he crashed back at Texas in June of 2001, had some very severe foot and ankle injuries. He was out for 6 years and came back 3 years ago, and he's been coming back to run the race ever since. And boy, the fans really admire him. And let's take another look at what happened to him.
There again, on the high side, Eddie, we've seen this so many times before, and making room for the cars from behind. And as soon as you get off that black area, which is where all the rubber is down on the racetrack and where the grip is, you get up into that gray, and then you just get sucked in and right into the wall.
Well, let's take you back to that 2001 moment, and this was awfully scary. In fact, Eddie Cheever, you're involved in that. That's you coming through.
I'm the one coming through. I remember seeing that, and I knew right from the beginning it was horrible because he went up against the wall, and it was just one of the most horrible things I've ever seen. And this is somebody who is driven by passion. Davey Hamilton just loves this place, and he works so hard to get here. And it's sad to see him in trouble today, but you cannot be altruistic when you're going through 3 and 4. You have to hold your line, even if there are faster cars behind you. If you get up high, that's what happens. There's just no grip up there.
And you can even look on the tires. You can see all the rubber debris that's built up on the race course is actually on top of the tires, because that's how far out of the groove that he got. And a great ovation by everybody here that really knows and respects what Davey has done. And he's with the Dreyer and Reinbold team, and we talked to those guys, Eddie, and they say that he's really been the leader in helping them get setups and really helped John and that group get an understanding about how to make their car a little stronger. Remember, he qualified in the first weekend and was pretty much set for the remainder of the week.
He's a great driver. He has a lot of experience here, and above all, he has an enormous amount of enthusiasm. I think you'd have to have it to recover from what he did. When he told me he was going to go race again, I looked at him and said, "Have you lost your mind?"
And Davey's one note of distinction, he was the oldest driver in the field at the age of 47. John Andretti, the second oldest. I'm sure he's going to thank me for reminding everybody of that.
She's done a great race. She's slowly moved her way up the field. She's stopped on her marks at the pit stops. She's been good in traffic. Nobody has been great in traffic yet. So I think she's running a very intelligent race. I think she's right on pace, and she has to stay there all the way through. But pretty soon, the drivers are going to have to start taking downforce out of their cars, and that's always a big risk, because when you do that, you change the balance of the car, and you might end up loose like Davey Hamilton was.
All right, so as Danica continues on this quest to win and be the first woman to win at Indy, take a look at Scott Dixon as he's got a half-second lead, but there's an order from pit lane. Scott, here he goes. Oh, no, we have a huge crash. And a second contact, and it looks like it is Tony Kanaan.
That was a big one.
The 7-11 of Tony Kanaan into the wall hard for the second year in a row. And I don't know what happened in this one, guys, because when we saw it,
he's okay.
He'd already made the first contact. Comes to a stop. The wheel comes off, and the Delphi safety team is right there.
That was a big hit.
I think for his family watching at home, they know that Tony's okay. He's moving inside the cockpit, and for his son Leonardo, Tony said that he was going to be watching today. His son is only 2 years old, and Danica Patrick gave him a go-kart to use when he becomes of age, and Tony said, "I hope he doesn't get into motor racing."
Did you see how he was sitting on the car? He wants to get out, but he just doesn't quite have the presence of mind or the calmness yet to step away from it. That was a big hit, and it's so sad to see this great driver every time he comes to Indy have some sort of a problem. I'm really looking forward to seeing the replay to see what happened, but he's fine.
He is fine. Let's go on board. Just listen in.
Oh, something broke on the car.
Something absolutely broke.
And here's the bad hit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the second hit was even worse. Take another look. Well, that's the end of it right there.
It could be a drive shaft. It just turned sharp right.
Yeah.
This guy just has no luck at all here.
And you saw Tony making an adjustment on his steering wheel that had nothing to do with the first impact. The second impact that you mentioned, he has no control right now, Eddie. We've both been in that position before. His brakes aren't working. The car is not even on the ground correctly. And he is just a passenger knowing that he's going to hit the wall, still at almost probably 205 or 10 miles an hour.
The worst thing is those 4 seconds, as you know you can do nothing. You've had a big hit and you keep going straight from that wall, and there's nothing you can do. So you almost counted down as to where you hit it, and he's very lucky that the walls are not as hard as they used to be.
Well, the sad part also for Tony is And as we look a little bit further back into the field, remember what happened to Danica Patrick. She has been relegated back to 10th place because of the bad pit stop, and she is still running in 10th place.
I got a vibration. Vibration feels like it's in the rear. Just hang in there with it. Hang in there with it until you get the tires.
She had a wiggle there.
Small amount of wiggle going into the turn, but that vibration, she could have picked up something off the track, some rubber debris, and we have another yellow for.
Well, it looks like there may be slight contact, perhaps. I was looking at the back of Nelson Philippe's car, and it looked like maybe the right side rear.
Now, don't forget that he hit the wall earlier on, and then maybe he did some damage when he did that. We talked about that before, Eddie, that sometimes you go and hit the wall and then come back 10, 20, 40 laps later. But now we can see that he's off the groove again, like we've seen so many times today for so many drivers. And it gets up into the gray, and he just walks the race car up the track and hits the wall.
That's not brushing the wall. And if you think about it, you're going 225 miles an hour. That is not brushing the wall. If you were testing, you would come in immediately, and you'd come into the pits slowly.
And say, let's take a break.
Yeah, let's take a break. I got to go spend some time with myself, and we'll be testing a few hours from now. But you're in the middle of the 500. You have to keep running. But what he's got to be very conscious of, he's got to come in the pits quickly, because if something breaks and you spin, you're in trouble.
Brakes on. We're going to fuel it, have a look at it. Taking away. What's the damage? What's the damage, Justin?
Well, you saw it in side-by-side. Justin Wilson tags the wall, bringing out our 7th caution. And this plays into the hands of one Dario Franchitti, who had fallen back by about 15 seconds. Let's take you back and show you what brought us to this moment.
Alex Lloyd down, just going in front of Justin Wilson, takes the air off the car by the looks of it, and the car just releases from underneath him. And Eddie, what usually happens in that scenario is he might have taken his foot off the gas just to get through the turn a little bit, and that weight transfer on his car would release the grip on the back, make the back light, and the thing just swapped ends. That's why you see it happen as dramatically as it did. And now we're going to have a look here from John Andretti's car. Watch up in front, and John sees this all so quickly, and he goes, man, I made it through that.
This plays right into Franchitti's hands. Dixon out there by himself doesn't seem to be as strong as he was when he had Franchitti as his partner. The two Penske's, Castroneves and Power, were actually driving away from the field, and Franchitti needs to get up there if the target team is going to have a chance to run these Penske boys down.
And Will Power looks like he had a faster pace than Castroneves, is from what we noticed also. And the other side of it, though, is that Franchitti back there with all the cars, maybe he doesn't have the right aero load to be back in the group of cars in amongst traffic. His car might be better set up just to be up running out in front with the area that he was before.
But really, how many passes have we seen today? Very few. It's very difficult to get up behind a car's gearbox, and unless there's some traffic up ahead of you, it's really hard to set somebody off and pass them. And
that's where I was
one
going
of the few guys that have done it.
With the rule change, with a tire designed around another rule change that they had, everybody's complaining they cannot run in traffic like they did last year, and they all seem to be putting it down to the development of the tire wrapped around a different chassis base.
Meanwhile, let's get an update on Danica Patrick. Jamie?
Well, Danica just radioed to the crew and asked, am I okay on fuel? They said, put it to fuel map number 2. They're not telling her to conserve yet, but she has the throttle down right now. Now, TJ Patrick, you see him in the box to the left of your screen. That is her dad. He never watches his daughter from the pit box. He's in turn 2. You see him in a red shirt. He's atop the suite. Always wants to be by himself, guys. He gets a little emotional.
He certainly does. We've followed TJ Patrick through a number of places. There you see, oh no, we've got contact, hard contact, 2 cars into the wall very hard, and that is Vitor Mira. made it through the fire, but did not make it through this, as he is hard into the wall, along with one other car at the top of the screen. And it is Rafael Matos, we are being told, the #2 Lusso Dragon car, and yes, it is.
Fuel is no longer an issue.
You're okay.
No, absolutely right. And that was a very hard hit for Vitor Mira. The Delphi safety crew is there so quickly. They know exactly the history of all the drivers here that are in the race cars this weekend, and they get to the car that has the most damage first, which was Vitor Mira. And in this situation here with Rafael Matos, he ended up putting himself in harm's way because, remember, he refueled, came in there just before we went to green, was hoping to use that strategy to get to the end. We don't know why these two got together, if indeed that was the case, but let's look at the replay here to have a look to see what happened. Down the front stretch, turn one, Matos probably trying to get around the outside of him, and they just both touch. Oh, that's a huge hit, Eddie.
Yeah, no, that's terrible. In fact, this is what happens at the end of the race. I have never seen a car like Vitor Mira's do that, and he is incredibly lucky that it's not the other way.
And right now, he is going along looking and saying, I can't believe this. What's going to happen next? Because you're going backwards, and you don't know what's happening. Now, Rafael Matos is on your high side. He thinks he's going to try and go around the outside, but realistically, Eddie, he had nowhere to go. He had not been up beside Vitor Mira. Vitor is just running the correct line going into the turn. That was a pass that, with a bit more of experience with Rafael, he probably would have done that differently next time around.
And he definitely would not do that in practice. That was just too risky.
All right, then, as you can see, the Delphi safety crew taking their time to make sure everything is A-OK with both of these drivers as we are under our 8th caution here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.